buenos días. To everyone, buenas tardes, depending on where you're at. I think we have people from different parts of the US joining us today, which is wonderful. But welcome to the first of our inaugural series of leadership insights or lecciones de liderazgo for our NALHE, National Association of Latino Healthcare Executives, Wisconsin chapter. We are very happy to have so many of you joining us today. And very happy to have Candace Sanchez as our speaker. You'll hear more about her and from her in the near future. So we just wanted to share, and I should say, I'm Alexa Urrutia Comas. I'm the president-elect of the NALHE Wisconsin chapter. And we have an amazing, wonderful board that I will introduce in a minute as well. Before we go on to that, I just wanted to thank our chapter sponsor, Froedtert and the Medical College of Wisconsin, for their donation in helping us ensure that we can have funds to continue to host events and run our chapter. So thank you for that. I also wanted to share a little bit about our mission and vision as our organization. I'm not going to read everything on the screen, but wanted to highlight that our vision is really to identify, develop, and connect Latino leaders across the state of Wisconsin, particularly in healthcare, so that the end goal for us is to grow up the pipeline of leaders and representation that we have in our state, because we all know that representation matters, and the more that we can highlight the wonderful work that Latino leaders are doing here in our state and that we can grow that pipeline, the more then we can continue to promote advancement in our diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. With that, how do we get to the vision that we have set for ourselves? Through our mission. And so we really want to provide a framework to be able to bring us all together, everyone that's highlighted here in terms of all of the different groups that can come together to meet, discuss, and influence factors that affect the representation of Latina leaders across our state. And like I mentioned earlier, really enhance and advance our DE&I efforts. So that's a little bit about our mission and vision as an organization, and happy to share more for those that are interested as well. Here is our board of directors, and I'm so excited to share that our board of directors is growing, especially in the past month and a half. So I'll go through everyone, but Andres Gonzalez is one of our co-founders and president of our NALHE Wisconsin chapter. Andres had a conflict today, so he's going to probably be joining us towards the tail end of the meeting. So if he's able to join, I'll make sure he introduces himself. I introduced myself earlier. Catarina Colon is one of our co-founders as well, and our secretary. Catarina, I don't know if you're on, but if you're on and able to go on video, we'd love to see you as well. She's been instrumental in helping us set up the chapter and all of the things that happen behind the scenes for a chapter to be able to function well. Yvonne Rennick is on video here. I think you guys can see Yvonne. She's one of our co-founders as well, and the treasurer for our chapter. So Yvonne makes sure that we're using our funds appropriately, and that we have efforts to continue to grow that so that we can promote events and some programming for all of you. And then Liz, I don't know, Liz was on camera earlier. I don't know if she's still on camera. Hello, hi. Liz is a newer member of our board. She's our new marketing and communications chair. This is her first event. So she's done a great job marketing, promoting, and making sure that we were able to live in this virtual world. So thank you, Liz, for that. And I don't know if Talia was able to join us today, but she's our new membership and advancement chair. So we're really excited to have her on board as well. So great board. We've been a chapter here in Wisconsin for about 2 years. And now that our chapter board is growing, we're hoping that our membership will continue to grow, and that some of you, if you're not members, will consider becoming members and continuing to promote what our chapter can do for Latino and Latina leaders across the state of Wisconsin. So with that, I will turn it over to Yvonne, who is going to be introducing our speaker for today, Candace Sanchez.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I have the great honor to introduce you to Candace Sanchez. She is the Director of Information Technology and Strategic Partnerships here at Advocate Health. She's also an author, a podcast host, motivational speaker, and life coach. I met Candace probably a couple years ago at a Women in Leadership conference, and I've heard her personally speak a few times, and every time it's even better than the last. She's very motivational, so we are excited for her to be here at this event. So a little bit background on Candace. She was born and raised in Racine, Wisconsin. Her Racine roots provided her a strong foundation to be a successful Latina woman. Candace is a firm believer in higher education. She could not preach college to her daughters if she did not attend college herself. Candace fulfilled her education goals by obtaining her bachelor's degree of science in IT from the University of Phoenix in June 2008 and followed up with her master's degree of business administration at the same university in June 2014. Candace prides herself on being a servant leader in the very same community where she grew up in Racine, Wisconsin. She is a proud member of the non-for-profit organization Por la Gente Association in Racine, Wisconsin. She has served as the board secretary, treasurer, president, and currently holds the executive board position as their vice president. Candace has put in countless hours helping establish this organization, which currently provides two $3,000 scholarships to local Latino youth. Candace also helped to found the Milwaukee chapter for the University of Phoenix Alumni Association and served as the vice president of operations. Additionally, Candace is a proud member of the Aurora Healing and Advocacy Giving Circle, board member of the Belief Survivors, and the National Foundation to End Child Abuse and Neglect. All these organizations align with her personal story. Last but not least, Candace is a proud sister of Gamma Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Through GAO, Candace has volunteered at numerous events, including the semi-annual Make a Difference Day and hunger cleanup events at the local food bank and the Milwaukee AIDS Walk. Besides her community engagement, she is also a dynamic healthcare IT leader. She has been in the healthcare IT field for the past 33 years. Most recently, she took a huge leap of faith and left an organization after 29 years of tenure. She stepped out of her comfort zone and during the midst of COVID has landed another great position as the IT director of strategic partnerships with Advocate Health. She is leading by example of continuing to grow and develop both personally and professionally. Above all, her focus to help youth is deep and it's personal. A troubled youth herself, Candace now shares her story of transformation and resilience that allows her to find happiness in her career, family, and most importantly, herself. Candace is a firm believer in everything happens for a reason, and that your past does not define who you are or who you are destined to become. Candace is a true testimony that no matter what your story is, it is powerful and impactful. If you ever have dreams of sharing your truth, have faith, get focused, and know that your voice is the most powerful tool you have to make a difference in this world. Thank you, Candace.
I think you told everything about me. Just kidding. So thanks everyone for having me today. I'm very honored to be speaking here for NALHE with the Wisconsin chapter. I met maybe some of you at the NALHE Summit last year. So being in healthcare, being in IT, the beauty of remote work is you can kind of plug in and plug out as appropriate. But, you know, I'm very happy to be here. Like I mentioned, everything happens for a reason, and it is the month of May. And May is Mental Health Awareness Month for those of you that celebrate that. But because of my past and my personal story, I really have gotten into my advocacy role because representation does matter, and there is power in your story. So I just want to share with you my career journey and how I landed to this point in my life. And I will first start off by saying it's never too late to really find your passion, find your purpose, live in your truth, be authentically you. I feel that once you can conquer any fears you might have, you're destined to be whatever you want to be in this life. And I feel like just with my story, you know, I'm 51 years old and I finally know what I want to be when I grow up. And that's truly an advocate, not only for myself, but for others. And I'll share why. So when I entered the workforce, you know, I was born and raised in Racine. I went to private schools. My mom was a single mother, but she married into a family, you know, that was a big family. And back in when I grew up in the 70s, 80s, Hispanic families had a lot of cousins and siblings. And so, you know, we were always together. So I was born and raised by my mom. You know, my mom instilled with me at a very young age to be a servant leader. She always had me in Girl Scouts. I was a Girl Scout from kindergarten all the way to my senior year in high school. I used to get picked on because of that, but my mom instilled that when you give to others, it comes back to you tenfold. And I do firmly believe that what my mother instilled in me has really kind of rooted to the person of who I am and why I get so involved with so many organizations that are aligned with my mission. And so I entered the workforce at the age of 19. I went to high school, and between the age of 5 to 15, I had some childhood trauma. And during that trauma, it was very tough. I was abused as a child between the age of 5 and 15 by two family members that I trusted. And I didn't tell anybody. I kept that secret very hidden, and in the core of my soul, because I had a lot of shame. I had a lot of guilt and a lot of fear about what would happen to my mom or my family if I exposed what was going on to me as a child. And so I buried that. And I walked around like nothing was wrong. I walked around as a happy-go-lucky young Latina, vibrant and full of energy. Of course, when you experience childhood trauma, if anyone in healthcare knows that it does have an impact on you, and it did. It carried with me into my young adult years. I graduated high school, thankfully, but I was pregnant my senior year in high school. I didn't graduate with the best grades, so I carried a lot of shame, not only with what was happening to me, but wondering if I was going to even excel in society or excel in life. But like I mentioned, your past does not define who you're meant to be, and you're so much more than what happens to you. And so then I entered the workforce at 19, and that's where I believe healthcare changed my life. I worked at a medical group in Racine, Wisconsin, Curtin Medical Group, and I was working for the pediatric providers. And I kind of learned early on in my, I would call it, I had a job. I collected a paycheck. I didn't view it as a career. And I remember working as a receptionist, and a lot of the leadership kind of saw something in me they believed in me before I believed in myself. And I used to come into work sometimes with a chip on my shoulder. It was very hard for me to trust individuals. It was very hard for me to open up and express what I was feeling. And so my leaders, at that point, I feel when they really truly see talent and they see skills, I was thankful that I had role models and mentors in my life, leadership in healthcare, that really pulled me aside and said, Candace, we don't know what's going on, but we really want you to know that we believe in you. We see talent in you. We want you to excel in your position. And so when they told me that, it really made me understand that my trauma with what happened to me as a child was affecting me in my professional setting. And so thank goodness I had a full-time career that then I had benefits. And because I was a young mother and trying to take care of myself, my children, I went and got mental health services and received treatment that I needed to obtain in order to be the best version of myself. And so with that being said, I then excelled. I wore many hats in my career in healthcare. I was a receptionist. I was a receptionist in pediatric department. Then I went into the registration department. When I was in registration, that's where I kind of really gained my knowledge of what it was like to work on a computer. I was building relationships with the patient accounts department and the billers. They started to come to me and tell me, Candace, you're not entering the insurance incorrect. You're entering the insurance incorrectly. How are you going to improve that process? And I said, well, if I'm talking to a patient over the phone, how am I supposed to know what insurance if I can't see their insurance card? And so because I became the subject matter expert, the go-to, I started to develop training programs, and that's where I build my knowledge for computer systems, is that I started to push the envelope and I started to ask key questions. And again, because leaders believed in me, I started to really excel in my role. I then went from working in the registration department and building training materials so that the registration departments were putting in the accurate insurance into the computer systems, whether it was an HMO insurance, a PPO insurance, the right employer, the right contact information. It was allowing our billers, their job, to be a little bit easier to file the claims. And then it was allowing us to then file the claim and get reimbursement a lot quicker. And I was having a direct impact on the revenue cycle without even really realizing it. Once I mastered registration, I again built my career. I went into the next position of managed care. Working in managed care, I did the same thing. I created tools in the technology in order to better foster the pre-certification, the prior authorizations. And so I was able to really be able to take that information and apply it. And I didn't stop there. From there, I then went into the IT space, and that's where I went back to school, pursued my education, got my bachelor's degree in IT, my master's degree. But I didn't stop there. I was in a healthcare environment for 29 years, and in any type of healthcare industry, as you all know, with the way things are transformed, I kind of reached a pivotal point in my career where I felt like I was unhappy. I felt like I needed change. And I was kind of worried of losing my position. And so what I did was I created a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. And I wrote a book. I wrote a book called Unspoken because I really wanted to speak my truth. From there, I took all of my IT skills and I created my own business and I became a podcast host. And so I was able to really foster and align my personal story of being abused as a child and really turn it into something to make change. And I believe, like I said, healthcare really helped to foster some of that change within me, the leadership believing in me. I had two young daughters that also, during my growing up, really struggled with me. But we've grown through that trauma. And, I'm just very honored to be able to be here on Mental Health Awareness Month, speak to you about my truth, share a little bit about my career path, being a Latina, being in IT. It hasn't been easy. I know that I struggled as far as just representation matters, stepping into spaces that people didn't look like me. Working in healthcare IT, because I'm remote, I'm supporting and working on really important projects that are related to health, diversity, and equity in the space. So I'm supporting the South Side of Chicago on a very key initiative to bring connected collaborative care. So I was just able to really build my career, continue to grow, continue to advance. I never stopped learning. I never stopped growing personally or professionally. And again, my past of the trauma did not define who I was meant to be. I've recently stepped into this role of being an advocate, again, not only for myself, but for others, because I feel like it's a personal responsibility to live in your truth and to really shine a light on for others to know that they are not alone, that they matter, that I see them, that I hear them, that I believe them. So really, representation matters not only on what you do on your personal space, but also your professional space. So I've really kind of blended those two together. And really, for the first time at 51 years old, I can say that I'm living in my true passion, in my true purpose. And it takes a village. It takes a village. So between my family, my friends, my community, having a space like NALHE, a community of leadership coming together to make change, to make sure that we're uplifting, encouraging, and motivating others. To me, that's what collaboration, that's what partnership is, that's what's community. And I'm just really honored that, no matter what obstacles I faced, challenges, I turned them into opportunities. I took everything that I learned throughout my career in healthcare, all the hats that I wore, from being a receptionist to being a registration clerk, to being a managed care leader, to then stepping into the IT space, becoming an application analyst, dealing with technicals, learning how to work on servers, where the majority of it was men doing the work. But Candace stepped into that space and I took my place. And so I really promote STEM to girls. And when I say servant leadership, I now make sure that I volunteer at IC Stars. I'm a mentor for the Mars Returnship. So again, I'm taking my personal representation, what I do in this space, and I make sure I plant the seed in others that they can do it too. Because that's what someone saw in me. And I really wouldn't be here if it wasn't for those leaders that would have pulled me aside to say, Candace, I believe in you. You are so much better than whatever this chip you have on your shoulder. And I commend those leaders, having those hard conversations with someone like me, especially with what I experienced. It was hard to hear, but I needed to hear it in order to grow. And so I really feel like I really pay homage to those leaderships. And like I mentioned in my bio, I could not preach college to my girls if I didn't go to college myself. And so when I got into the IT workforce, when I got hired as an application analyst, I went back to school because I wanted to be a leader. I wanted to be in management. I wanted to be a director. I wanted to run the hospital. I wanted to just have that opportunity, but I had to work hard to get there. And I went to school, got my bachelor's. And again, my girls saw me, struggle. And that's why I always tell them, like, I don't want you to struggle as hard as I had to struggle. Just try to make better choices than what mom did. And, I'm so proud. Both of my girls ended up in healthcare. One is working for Freightert. She is in the MRI department. And then my other daughter was a phlebotomist, but now she works in the service industry. So I just feel like, again, we are all role models within our community, within our families. I'm just very happy that I was able to take all of my pain, turn it into my purpose, turn it into my passion. My book called Unspoken, because I wasn't supposed to tell. My podcast is a spin off the book. It's called Unspoken Conversations with Candace, where I allow a safe place for other stories, other survivors, so that they can be heard. We don't talk about these taboo topics. And I think if the pandemic taught us anything, it taught us that we should talk about those topics. People do not need to feel isolated, alone, that they don't matter, that their problems are their own problems and they don't want to dump on other people. No, we need to advocate for mental health. We need to advocate that it's okay to talk about your story. And if you're not comfortable sharing your story, it's okay. I'm just here to tell you that when you do, there's so much power that is given back to you. I'm just very honored and grateful that NALHE allowed me to speak. I've done this so many times, but every time I do it, I just feel more empowered to continue on my mission. My bio did mention that I'm also a board member of the Leaf Survivors Incorporated and also a board member of the National Foundation to End Child Abuse and Neglect. And the reason why I choose to be part of those boards is because I really want to make impact. We think that this topic is a social or legal issue. No, it's a public health issue. With mental health and these children, they're born into this world, and we really need to take care of these children and nurture these children and make sure that they know that they're safe and that they're protected. And again, I didn't have a lot of those resources growing up, nor was I educated about those resources. But that is what I feel that as a healthcare leader, working for equity, diversity, and inclusion, I'm a representation of, doesn't matter where you come from, doesn't matter what happened to you, you can shine bright like the sun, like the stars, you can dream big, you can accomplish anything. Your past doesn't define who you're meant to be. You are so much more than what happened to you. And that's really, truly what I firmly believe that I'm born to do. I'm born to do this. And I've started to do life coaching, motivational speaking. Today is Wednesday, and every day I wake up with an attitude of gratitude. And I'm a firm believer in divine design. People come into your life for a reason. They come into your life for a season sometimes, and that's okay. And I just really feel that when you live in an attitude of gratitude, those blessings are going to come into your life. And, I have learned to persevere. I've learned to gain resiliency. I've learned to pivot. I've learned to transform. And I've really grown from the inside out. And it can happen for any one of us. And again, at 51 years old, I'm still healing. Healing is a lifelong journey. It never goes away. There's triggers that I still experience as a leader. There's days that it's hard to push forward, but then I realize that the work that I do is important. The work that I do matters. And having that, it's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay to stay that way. And so if there's anything that you're going through in this life, just really try to, reset and start your day with a positive mindset. I had to go from a mindset of being a victim to then shifting to being a survivor and just trying to live day by day to really thriving. And I feel like finally I can say at where I am at this point in my life that I'm thriving, that I'm waking up every day with an attitude of gratitude, that I'm believing in the divine design that's meant for my life, that I'm stepping into this advocacy role, that I'm being a true leader, that representation matters, that I'm being, a diverse leader, I'm being an inclusive leader, that I'm making sure there's equity within the groups that I'm surrounding myself in. And I think that that's where change really happens. So I just, want to say thank you for allowing me to speak. I'd like to open the floor for questions. I know I've kind of talked about a lot with my career path and how I shaped to where I am today. And I'm just so proud of the work that NALHE is doing. I went to the summit and I made sure that I attended at least 1 or 2 portions of it. And I think the most important was when I got to go do the food pantry, like we were doing for the hunger task force. And I remember I was working with Andres, and I remember seeing Rolando, and it was just amazing to be a part of that. And if my mom taught me anything, service is where it's at. And when you give back, it comes back to you tenfold. So I just want to say thank you to NALHE for having me here. And Yvonne, thank you for, asking me and, letting me come here. And again, it's a wonderful winning Wednesday. Every day, if you follow me on any of my socials, I try to be very positive, right? Even if I'm having a bad day. So, today's wonderful winning Wednesday. On Thursday, it's Thankful Thursday. On Friday, it's a faithful, fantastic Friday. On Saturday, I want you to take care of yourself. So have a self-care Saturday. On Sunday, I do go to church. I'm all about community. I'd say have a spiritual Sunday, motivational Monday, and terrific Tuesday. So just wanted to plant some positivity to everybody listening. I just want to say thank you all for just letting me kind of share a little bit about my story, my journey, my career path. And I'll open it up, Yvonne, with some questions, or if there's anything in the chat. I know I see it kind of coming up, so I'm trying
I'll
to
go
take
through.
a peek.
So we can open it. If you have a question in particular, you can put it in the chat or raise your hand and we'll unmute you. One comment I do want to share is that someone said the best example of servant leadership comes from experience and empathy. Thank you for telling your story. The next question is from Marcos Pesquera. He is our NALHE president. And so thank you for joining us today. His question is, many in my community do not have a career mindset. They just look for their next job. How can I help fuel a desire to build a progressive career path?
Yeah, I think for me, I guess my advice would be, it's all about goal setting. Right. I think, what is it that you really want? What are your skill sets? What are your talents? I think for me, I had to really navigate that at different points in my life. So I think no matter wherever the person is at, is just kind of doing that assessment. What are they interested in? Is there something new they want to learn? There are so many resources out there to allow that ability for someone to kind of figure that out, even within our own networks. Like if I don't know something in my coaching, when I'm coaching clients and I don't know, I go find out for them. I have so many people, my resources in my personal setting, as well as my professional setting. So I try to go find resources to help that individual to navigate what it is that they want in this life for their career.
Thank you, Candace. Alexa?
All right, here we go. Thank you, Candace. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. We greatly appreciate it. And I loved your winning Wednesday. This is definitely a winning Wednesday. And you mentioned so many things that resonated. And one of the things I thought that people here might want to hear about, you particularly said that you chose the boards that you're a part of because that's how you want to make an impact. And so I was just wondering if you would be able to share with folks who are on the call, like, A, if someone's not on a board, how may people go about choosing how to reach out to an organization if they're interested in joining a board? And B, for people that are maybe later in their career and are choosing which boards to join, how do you decide when you have kind of options available to you, where you go and what you want to be a part of? If you can share more about that, that would be great.
Absolutely. I know, like I mentioned, I was a board member of Por La Gente as well. And I remember growing up in Racine, Por La Gente was huge in the community. I mean, there was a softball tournament, there was a basketball tournament. They put sporting events on in order to raise money for scholarships. I never knew they were raising money for scholarships. I was just there having a good time volunteering. But once I understood the mission, so I think the important message is mission. Finding things that align with your personal beliefs, your personal values. What is it that what type of change do you want to see in the world, right? We talk about that a lot. We see a lot of, memes on your social medias, be the change you want to see in the world. So what is it that you are passionate about? What are the missions are important to you? And for me, like I said, because of my personal story and, being abused as a child, when I found Belief Survivors as an organization in Racine that I didn't know about, that I didn't realize as a child, wow, I had a resource. I could have gone and gotten services for free. I had no idea. But finding something that really calls to what your values and what really matters to you. That's how I've aligned myself with boards. So Por La Gente, again, because it's giving back to where I grew up, they give back to Latino youth. I believe in higher education. relief survivors. I'm a board member because I didn't have those types of resources, and it aligns with my personal mission. And then the National Foundation to End Child Abuse and Neglect, because they want to raise funds to raise awareness for prevention, advocacy, and research on how do we stop this how do we prevent it and how do we stop it. I don't know if any of you know, but the statistics are 1 in 4 girls, 1 in 6 boys by the time they're 18 will have been sexually assaulted. That statistic has been around for the past 50 years. Why hasn't it changed? We have to become change agents. And that's my position. That's where I'm now wanting to be, that type of person to move the needle and make that change happen. So be the change that you want to see and align yourself with missions that align with your personal goals and values.
Thank you, Candace. The next question is from Alex. What is the best advice you have given your children when they have started their careers in healthcare?
Well, they always tell me when they come to me for advice, I'm like, do you want my director hat or do you want my mom hat? Which hat do you want me to wear? So I think the biggest advice is never hold back because you're afraid. Don't be afraid. If you apply for a position, a career advancement, a new opportunity, you want to change departments, you want to go after the management job, director job, president, go for it. I'm here to tell you, go for it. The worst thing that can happen is they're going to tell you no, and that's okay. You learn from it, you grow from it, and it probably wasn't meant for you. My girls know that I had tried to get into leadership 3 times. I remember applying for a position 3 times. The first time I didn't get it. Second time I didn't get it. And I almost did not apply the 3rd time, but somebody encouraged me, Candace, just give it a shot. You never know, and the joke was 3rd time's a charm, and it ended up happening. But I can tell you what I learned through that experience of applying and reapplying. The first time I went in with an entitlement attitude, thinking that because I had been with this organization for 20 years, it was my job. They were going to give it to me. I went in with the wrong mindset. I had to change that mindset, and thank God to the leader for telling me how I went into that interview. Again, Candace was probably still carrying a chip on her shoulder, thinking like, oh, this is my job. No, it's not that easy. And I had to grow from that experience. The second time I went, I was up against 3 other great candidates, and I knew them all in the leadership. They were all wanting to be in leadership. And the best candidate got the position. And I had put my best foot forward at that time. And I think the 3rd time that I didn't want to apply was because I was afraid to be told no, because I was told no twice before, but I went for it. And I remember in that interview being interviewed by the panel, and because I went in there with what I had learned, my experience, I went in there about team building, I went in there about changing the culture, I went in there about holding people accountable, I went in there talking about the department, the team, and what I was going to do to make this organization better. That's what landed me that position. And so again, it sometimes even took me at where I was at my stage in the career, still time to grow. So I tell my kids, don't be afraid of no, and you're going to learn from that experience.
That's great. Thank you. Lupe has a question. What was the biggest challenge as you advanced in your career?
The biggest challenge as I advanced in my career. So when I had to leave, so I worked for, when I think about, I worked for Curtin Medical Group, Racine Medical Clinic, it became All Saints, and then it was part of Wheaton Franciscan, and then it was Ascension. And I grew up in that organization for 29 years. I was raised, like they helped to create the woman that I am, the leader that I am. And it was hard to leave 29 years of tenure on the table. I remember having that conversation with my mom. And my mom had been working for the post office for 30 plus years. And she's like, you don't want to leave me, huh? You can't. That's, your bread and butter. And I was like, Mom, I don't feel like I'm the right fit anymore. I'm not growing. I'm being passed up on opportunity. And I didn't want to have a pity party. I had to step out of my comfort zone. I had to brush up my resume. I had to get my interview skills to par. So I had to take a leap of faith. And thank God, great leaders knew me at Advocate Aurora Health, recommended me, Candace, you should really apply. This is a great fit for you. I applied. I went through the interview process. As scared as I was to try something new, to restart, to reset the button, I was able to land this amazing opportunity with Advocate Health, being the director in IT partnerships. And I can tell you that my current leader is really pushing the envelope. He's got me on projects that I never thought were possible, working on the south side of Chicago, creating a connected a collaboration of 13 organizations in the IT space working together. Talk about influence, talk about diversity, talking about inclusion, equity. We're making that all happen for the patients that we're serving on the South Side of Chicago. And I get to do that being remote, which is amazing. And then he's also got me in opportunities where we're doing epic to epic integration. That hasn't been done in our organization. So he said, Candace, I couldn't think of a better person to lead that project because you have a great way of influencing, a great way of getting people, building community, getting people to buy into what we're trying to do, and making sure that the work that what we're trying to do is provide the best patient care with an epic to epic integration. So really, it's just stepping out of your comfort zone, taking that chance and going for it.
Great. Nicole has a question. Milwaukee still has a pretty high percentage of Latinas who do not complete high school. What can NALHE do to help represent in the schools?
I mean, I just think that we need to represent. They need to see us. They need to see us in the schools, whether we bring panels to the schools or, go into the schools and share some of those career fair opportunities. I know that there's been a couple of times where they have like community fairs where they can have organizations come get a table and talk about and making sure they're seeing leaders that look like us, right? So that they can say, oh my goodness. And I can tell you, I've walked the hallways, before the pandemic, when I was always in the hospital settings, people pulling me aside going, where do you work? What do you do? Like surprised to see the fact that I was in leadership. And that was kind of inspiring for them. And again, I make sure that I'm in groups. Like, for example, I volunteer at IC Stars, and that's really helping the inner city community students that, people that want to get into the tech space. I work a lot with different Milwaukee Tech Hub, really trying to make sure that they're seeing leaders like myself that has a position IT, that I am a woman, that I am a Latina, that it's possible. And so really just, I think going into those schools and making sure that either we get a table or that they know that this is possible for them and promoting that to those students.
Right. This is one question from Martin. Do you have positive feedback for Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday? I think we should add them all to the chat, actually.
Yeah. So for Sunday, I always say spiritual Sunday, motivational Monday, terrific Tuesday. So those are my three. And then I had wonderful winning Wednesday, because I think you should celebrate your wins. I'm all about celebrating your wins. And when I talked about the attitude of gratitude, I wake up in the morning and there's some days I'm like, oh, I got so many things to do. And I surrender, like, okay, I surrender. Whatever is supposed to happen today is going to happen today. But then I make sure that before I go to bed, I say out loud or I speak out, what are the three things that I'm most grateful for that happened today? And you have to celebrate your wins in life, because if you don't celebrate the wins in life, who is going to celebrate those wins? You have to celebrate your wins. And so that's just something that I've been practicing. Again, I've been really in the season of attitude of gratitude, because if it wasn't for the things that I went through, for the people that, came into my life, that believed in me before I believed in myself, that helped me, to push the envelope. I built the courage because people were kind of like behind me, cheering me on. So Thankful Thursday, fantastic, faithful Friday, or faithful, fantastic Friday. And then the most important one is self-care Saturday. No problem, Lily. I saw it pop up.
Thank you.
Make sure you follow me on my socials, because I try very hard to make sure I stay positive. So then you'll be reminded every day.
Perfect.
And spread the love. I always say spread the love. Take what I'm sharing and put it on your own socials, because we need more love in the world. We need more positivity.
Thank you. We probably have time for a couple more questions. Here's one that I have. How do you prepare or position yourself to be comfortable in uncomfortable spaces?
Oh, that is just my space, point blank. So when I think about my podcast, my podcast is Unspoken Conversations with Candace, where we have difficult and uncomfortable conversations about people's trauma and some life events that are kind of unimaginable, unthinkable. Even in the workplace, when you're dealing with conflict or you're dealing with a difficult, situation, you have to shift the mindset as far as this is an opportunity not only for me to grow, but for the other person to grow or the team to grow. I really believe that, again, if you don't have those difficult conversations, those hard, tough conversations, you're just going to stay stagnant. And for me, I always wanted to be the better version of myself. And so I think having those conversations is just a requirement. How you go about having them, that's a skill that sometimes I think you need to learn. I had to learn them. There's tons of resources out there on how to go from conflict to collaboration. I remember taking some soft skill courses. I remember taking some people skill courses to kind of help me put tools in my toolbox so that I could have those difficult conversations. When I became a leader, I remember my director telling me verbatim, Candace, you're going to have to clean house in your department of technicians. I had 28 technicians reporting me in 3 different states. And when he said clean house, I didn't really know what that meant. And then I thought about it, I'm like, oh my God, he wants me to fire people? I can't fire people. That's scary. But what he meant was you need to hold people accountable. You need to put them on their performance review plans. And if they're not working out, we need to performance manage out. I never knew what any of those words meant until I got into like the management position. I worked with their HR partners, and I really had to learn how to go about having those conversations and holding people accountable. And let me tell you, that was tough, but it really felt like it kind of boosted the morale within the team, because the team kind of felt like the ones that weren't carrying the weight, they were going to be kind of either let go or they were going to have to find other positions. And that's what happens in the real workforce. And we were able to set a new precedent. We were able to build morale. And yes, it didn't work out for some team members, but I was able to work with them and let these team members know that then they need to find something that's best suited for what they're looking for. And it's not that they didn't want to work there. It's just that their skill sets, maybe they outgrew the position. And so again, those conversations, they must be had, because that's the only way people are going to grow, for yourself as well as for the team, the organization, and that other person.
All right, I think we have time for one more question. So as you talk about, being a woman in IT, there's not a lot of women, or being a Hispanic woman in leadership, lots of different firsts for you. How do you wrap your mind around being okay with being the first?
The first, honestly, I feel honored. I feel honored, humbled, gracious, like just grateful. I remember stepping into those spaces, kind of like just standing back and not wanting to engage. But then I ended up building a confidence within me and said, I deserve to be here. I have worked really hard, raising my girls, going back to school, working a full-time career, dealing with my trauma, understanding that, that wasn't my fault, letting go of the shame, letting go of the fear, letting go of the guilt, stepping out of my comfort zone, growing personally, growing professionally, putting myself out there, making a difference, making an impact. I just felt like doing what my mom taught me to do is, Mija, just go out there, do good to other people, because it's going to come back to you. And and honestly, she was right. Mothers are always right. At least I feel like that with my mom. And it hasn't been easy. When I had to share my truth with my mom, that was the most difficult thing. And she's now retired and she lives with me, and now I get to take care of her. And I get emotional because she's my rock. She's my rock. She's my foundation. And if I didn't have her support, I don't think I would be here to this day. So thank you all for letting me share and be vulnerable on this wonderful Winning Wednesday.
Thank you, Candace. Again, thank you so much for sharing your story. Even through some of your answers to the Q&A, I was getting goosebumps when you were sharing things. I did highlight, Rolando did a great job highlighting some of your amazing kind of comments and things for people to take back with them. So make sure to check out the chat for everyone who's on if you haven't yet. A couple of other things I wrote down too. I loved when you said that you deserve to be here, and knowing that and owning that as you progress through your career and your journey in life. not being afraid of being told no. I think that's a very powerful message that resonated with me, and hopefully it resonated with others on the line as well. Making sure that we're visible out in the community in addition to our workplace, so that future generations can see people, can see Latinas thriving, as you mentioned earlier, and hopefully that inspires people to pursue whatever they're interested in life as well. And of course, looking for opportunities to build others up and having those difficult conversations, and then your attitude of gratitude. So you said many other things, but those were some that I wrote down on here. So thank you again for joining us today. I hope you are able to look at the chat, because there's wonderful comments about everything that you shared with us today, and people can please go follow you on social media so they can hear and see more of your content on a regular basis. In terms of, I'm going to switch gears a little bit and just share with people what we have coming up for NALHE in the coming months here. Can people see, are you seeing a flyer yet, or are you seeing, here we go. Okay, here we go. I think you can see it now, right? The flyer for the summit.
Yes.
Right. So for those who don't know, our National Association of Latino Healthcare Executives chapter, or organization, I'm sorry, host an annual summit every year. That's the summit that Candace was referring to earlier. It was in Milwaukee last year. We were very fortunate to be able to host it live after a couple of years of virtual or virtual and in-person conferences. So this year, the summit is actually going to be in Seattle. You can see the dates on here, September 13th, 14th, and 15th. Registration is now open, so you're able to go and register. There's a QR code on the slide, but also if you go on Google and Google NALHE, you'll see the website and the dates for this as well. So very much looking forward to that and reconnecting with everyone from across the United States coming up in a few months here. And then for our local chapter, we have a networking event coming up this summer. So location is to be determined, but the date has been set. It is a Thursday, July 13th at 4:30 p.m., probably in the greater Milwaukee area. But just please make sure to mark your calendars and save the date, because we would love to see many of you in person and be able to connect in that way. I think this went extremely well today, and so hopefully it is the first of many leadership series or lecciones de liderazgo that we are able to host as the year progresses. So thank you again, Candace, for being the first and setting the trail for future speakers to come. And one last thing for everyone, if you are not a NALHE member yet, we would love for you to become a NALHE member and of course join our Wisconsin chapter. And I apologize, I keep looking over here. That's where the screen where the presentation is projecting is. But our national organization has been gracious enough to offer a free year of membership for any new members. So you can see the code on your screen. If you want to join NALHE, we would love for you to do so and be a part of our organization. And you can use the code on the screen for a free year of membership. Thank you everyone so much for joining. We appreciate it, and we appreciate you, Candace. Thank you very much. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.